So according to several leaks and reports, the Nintendo Switch 2, or Super Switch, or unnamed new Nintendo hardware, whatever you want to call it, it's been delayed. Gasp. So a lot of reliable sources are reporting that Nintendo has decided to push back the planned Q4 2024 launch of the new hardware to early 2025. It doesn't sound to be production related. It's not like they don't have enough boxes. I guess it's just they want to make sure that first party launch lineup is as solid as possible. Okay, so we've already known that Nintendo is concerned about how to manage the new hardware launch. After the transition from the successful Wii to the poor sales of the Wii U, Nintendo understands that all this positive momentum they've experienced over the past few years could easily just fade away with a few bad decisions. And from what we've been hearing, they are taking just about every precaution to avoid that. For the past year or so, there have been concerns about whether the Switch 2 will play Switch games through backwards compatibility or whether Nintendo will force you to buy them again. But it does sound like the next Nintendo hardware will have digital and physical backwards compatibility with Switch games, which is good. That's good news. I'm sure normally Nintendo and third parties would be against this, as the prospect of reselling games like Mario Kart 8 once again is too much to pass up, and it still might be. But at the same time, all it takes is one slip up and Nintendo is back to where it was in 2013 and 2014. So what does all this mean? A delay to early 2025 is probably not something that Nintendo is taking lightly. Missing out on the big 2024 holiday season is gonna hurt. Granted, 2024 is not looking to be nearly as competitive as 2023 was in terms of software. Not a ton of AAA stuff planned right now, but it sounds like the PS5 Pro is going to launch later this year, and it sounds like new Xbox refreshes are going to be announced. This is going to all result in more consumers spending more of their disposable income on gaming hardware, meaning there's less money to go around for Nintendo. Either way, if Nintendo is delaying the Switch 2 to have a better launch lineup, what might that launch lineup look like? Today, I want to speculate. I just want to widely speculate on what Switch 2 launch games we might get, because it sounds like we're getting more than just one or two from old Nintendo. Number one, new 3D Mario. Look, I think this is pretty much a given, especially at this point. Nintendo always needs a big game to launch with its hardware, a system seller. And while many Nintendo properties are popular, we do know that some franchises are more popular than others. Nintendo is going to need some heavy hitters at this launch lineup. And when it comes to Nintendo, I would consider games that sell over 20+ million units as system sellers. Recently, this has included franchises like The Legend of Zelda, Mario Party, surprisingly, 3D Mario, main series Pokemon entries, Super Smash Bros, and Mario Kart. Oh, and I can't forget Animal Crossing. I know there's some debate whether Animal Crossing is a system seller. The last game, though, sold over 44 million units. That is more than any Call of Duty. That is more than just about any individual game in history that was not resold on another platform or commonly packed in with hardware. It is simply one of the best-selling video games of all time. But it came at the perfect time. It launched right when global events were causing people to stay inside, when the Switch sales were exploding, and Animal Crossing was this game about going outside, and that was particularly appealing. But it's not gonna hit those heights again, but it's still gonna be an S-tier franchise for Nintendo. In one of my previous videos, a commenter noted how a new Animal Crossing as a launch title might not be very realistic, since the same developers who make that game also make Splatoon. But it's not that simple. They do share many developers, but also many Nintendo first-party games share developers. Much of the crossover between devs seems to have come from the Splatoon 2 into Animal Crossing New Horizons. From what I can tell, maybe not as many people from Animal Crossing New Horizons went to work on Splatoon 3 because, well, Splatoon 3 launched only 2 years after New Horizons. While they definitely share a few developers, it's not as if the entire team or even directors were shared between Splatoon 3 and Animal Crossing New Horizon or the next Animal Crossing. With all that said, it has been 5 years since Animal Crossing released, and I think this is probably going to be a launch title and one of the big system sellers. But there's gotta be a bit more. The best-selling Nintendo Switch game was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a re-release of Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. Since launch, it's received a ton of DLC, and I think it would be a missed opportunity to not re-release this. I know that sounds anti-consumer, it sounds bad, but hear me out. Sure, the Switch 2 still supports backwards compatibility, but I think a lot of people did not buy the DLC packs that greatly increased the number of tracks. They didn't see all the new characters, didn't see all the new updates. The 60+ million people or whatever that bought this game didn't see all that it has to offer today. And I would be shocked if we don't just get a definitive edition of Mario Kart 8 with DLC, unless they're planning a Mario Kart 9 to release in the near future. Look, for a game that sold this many copies, an unprecedented number of copies even for Nintendo, a new entry is coming sooner rather than later. Smash Bros. Wouldn't count on it. And Sakurai seems unwilling to return. I'm not counting on another Smash Bros. Anytime soon. I mean, it could happen, but definitely not at launch. And if it did, it would, much like Mario Kart, be another collection of DLC and characters and maps, you know, a definitive edition for what was already a definitive edition. In both of these cases, maybe it's possible that we'll get a few visual tweaks to take advantage of that new Nintendo hardware, but hey, I don't know. I really don't know. There's always talk about the Metroid Prime Trilogy remaster. I think that's more of a Switch game than a Switch 2 game, but I could be wrong. And again, I still don't expect Prime 4 to be a Switch 2 launch title. It just wouldn't drive Switch sales as much as many Metroid fans seem to believe. And while it could introduce new people to the series by having it as a big title at launch, let's not pretend like a game called Metroid Prime 4 is going to resonate with a ton of non-Metroid fans. A new Mario Party could work, but I really don't think that's something that needs to be out at launch. You know, save that a little bit later. Nintendo has a tendency to have a gimmick game on day one. In the case of the Wii, it was Wii Sports. That was a smash hit, made the console a smash hit. In the case of the Wii U, Nintendo Land really didn't do the same. For the original Switch, you have the forgettable 1-2 switch. I think we've moved past the need for gimmick games, although, hey, it's entirely possible that we will get another. And a new IP isn't out of the question. Nintendo has never really strayed away from taking chances with games like ARMS, chances that don't usually pan out that well. I wouldn't be surprised if we got something entirely unexpected, but if we do, I also wouldn't be surprised if that's the console's gimmick game. In a change of pace for what the Pokemon company usually does, it sounds like Pokemon Legends Z to A is actually probably gonna be a launch title for the new Nintendo hardware. With this tweet saying that it's gonna be on Nintendo Switch systems, plural, I don't know, that seems like a giveaway, doesn't it? Like, usually Nintendo doesn't seem to distinguish between the Switch OLED, the Switch Lite, and the Switch, you know? So Pokemon Legends Z to A, Pokemon Z. There you go. As for the Switch Retro Game Collection, Nintendo Online, subscription, whatever they call it, I do think that the Switch 2 would be a good opportunity to start introducing GameCube backwards compatibility. The issue here has always been the size of the games. I mean, when you're talking about games that exceed a gigabyte, downloading all of those, downloading 20 GameCube games, that might be a lot for people. That might be a lot for the storage size of a Switch. The Switch 2 might have more storage space, and that'd be cool, but I still think Nintendo's gonna allow users to pick and choose what games they want, as opposed to just downloading all of the games instantly. I think this is important. This is an important feature. Let people play their GameCube games, or some GameCube games. It would be a good way to get a lot of older Nintendo fans interested in this hardware, even if they aren't all that interested in the new games. Personally, I love the idea that we get DS games on the Switch 2, but the problem is the form factor. Unless the Switch 2 has a significant change from the form factor of the Switch 1, unless you can hold this thing in vertical portrait mode with the controllers at the sides, it's gonna be hard to get some DS games over there. Finally, I want to discuss some of the wild cards, the wild card predictions. I don't expect a new F-Zero, a new Star Fox, a new 3D Donkey Kong at launch. I think these franchises are better suited for later in the hardware lifecycle when core Nintendo fans are going to pick up the games. You know, they're going to hype them up, they're going to hype other people up. You know, Pikmin's never really been a massive Nintendo franchise, but by launching late in the Switch's life cycle, it seems like a lot more people got into it. You don't need to front load all this. You don't need to put all your stuff on the platform day one, because you still got to consider they need holiday games for 2025. They still need consistent titles throughout the generation, and you can't just drop everything good on the first day. Given the news of this delay though, I am more confident that the next Nintendo hardware will launch with not only a good, but maybe even a great first party lineup, and that's good. That is probably a good thing.